Did you know that your zip code can add or subtract as much as 10 years to your life expectancy? And that the color of your skin could impact the quality of the air that you are breathing? I know, this is a shocker, but it is reality for many people who live across the United States. Hello, my name is Parker McMullen Bushman, and I have spent the majority of my career working to ensure that everyone, regardless of their race, socioeconomic status, or zip code, has access to clean air, has access to clean water, and has a connection to nature. Throughout my career, I have realized that the fight for the environment is closely linked to our fight for social justice issues. We have communities that have so many trees, have access to parks, have clean air, while other communities are plagued by pollution. They don't have access to many green spaces, and the health outcomes in those communities are terrible. This is not something that is a surprise. This is actually the long-lasting impacts of things like redlining and other policies that have impacted the way that our communities are set up and the way that people live within those communities. Redlining was something that came about through the Federal Housing Administration back in the 1930s. Redlining was when the Federal Housing Administration actually brought up maps of major metropolitan areas, and they marked neighborhoods of color in red. Now, when they were doing this, they were advising lenders not to invest in these neighborhoods, not to provide loans in these neighborhoods because of an infiltration of foreign-born, Negro, or lower-grade populations. Now, this effectively segregated these neighborhoods and cut them off from access to resources, investment, cut them off from the ability to grow. And this had a very long-lasting impact. And it wasn't only housing that was affected by redlining. Redlining also affected where we placed industrial facilities, highways, and other pollution-causing industries. Local zoning officials actually worked with businesses to say where these things would be placed, and more often than not, they were placed in communities that were already marginalized by the federal government. Now, I talked a little bit earlier about life expectancy. This impacted the life expectancy of the people living in those places. The Center for Disease Control has created a map of zip codes around the United States. And this map has shown a stark reality. Where you live can greatly impact how long you live. Now, you might be asking why. Well, it's because environmental and social determinants of health heavily impact our life expectancy. And people living in neighborhoods that have already been filled with pollution-causing industries are more likely to be bringing pollutants into their body that cause chronic health conditions. This is something that has long-term effects on people who live in those communities and long-term effects on our environment. For example, this is two neighborhoods in the Denver metro area. One is called Globeville, Elaria, Swansea. Globeville was historically redlined. Globeville also is home to the state's only oil refinery, Suncor. The people that live there suffer from chronic health issues and have some of the worst air quality in Denver. On our second track, we have the affluent neighborhoods of Wash Park and Cherry Creek. The people there don't have an oil refinery, and they have so much access to parks, green spaces, and cleaner air. And you can see that the life expectancy between these two areas are greatly different. Also, research has shown that race is the biggest predictor factor for if someone is exposed to an environmental harm. It is a bigger predictor than socioeconomic status, meaning that a middle-class Black person is more likely to be located next to an environmental harm than a very poor white person. It gives the saying, "I can't breathe," a whole new meaning. How does this affect our overall environment? Well, when people say, "not in my backyard," to the placement of environmental harms, toxic waste sites, and pollutants, those things don't just disappear. They have to go somewhere. And more often than not, they end up in the backyards of people who are already marginalized. Because let's be honest, if it's not going into your backyard, more than likely it's going into mine. And when people say "not in my backyard," it really boggles my brain, because I believe that maybe they don't understand that we all live in a shared ecosystem. I'm going to give you an example of this. One of my favorite courses to teach when I was an environmental educator was pond study class. Has anyone ever done a pond study class? I absolutely loved it. I would take groups of kids out, and we would study what animal life lived beneath the surface of the water. Now, we would not only be studying the animal life, but we would also be studying water quality. And there's a few different ways to be able to measure water quality. One is through chemical testing. Another way is by examining the animal life beneath the surface and seeing which animals were present and which were not. We knew that if we found mayflies, stoneflies, caddisflies, that was a healthy pond environment, because these animals have very little tolerance for pollution. If we only found the midges, mosquito larvae, or water boatmen, then we knew that the water quality probably wasn't that great, because these are air-breathing, pollution-tolerant species. So our mayflies, stoneflies, and caddisflies, they were our indicator species. They let us know about the overall health of the pond environment. And it's the same for human beings. We are destroying our planet at an unprecedented rate. And those of us that are most marginalized within our communities are suffering first and worse because of these pollutants. And just because we have the ability to protect ourselves and maybe stave off some of the effects of pollution within our communities doesn't mean that we should turn our backs, because we're all a part of the same environment. We're all a part of the same ecosystem. When we are thinking about solutions for pollution, the solution isn't to relocate toxic waste sites to the different neighborhoods around our country. The solution is to not say, "not in my backyard," but to say, "not in anyone's backyard." We are all a part of the same pond. We're all a part of the same ecosystem. So we cannot afford to allow some people in our community to suffer. We cannot afford to allow some environments within our community to be polluted. And oftentimes, when we allow certain environments to be polluted, it's because we consider them throwaway environments. And in order to have throwaway environments, we often have to have throwaway people. So there are so many things that we can do as communities to stop environmental racism and to stop environmental harms. And one is to start by educating ourselves and educating those around us. We can also use our voice to be able to speak up and to speak out, to be able to say that this should not be happening to anyone in our community, because we have no other planet. We have to protect the one that we're on now. I want you all to take a moment and close your eyes with me. And I want you to vision. I want you to imagine a world where clean air and clean water is a right. I want you to imagine a world where everyone feels safe outdoors. Imagine a world where everyone, no matter their background, can say, "I can breathe." Imagine a world where Black lives are cherished, where Indigenous rights and sovereignty is respected. I don't believe that this is a dream. I believe that this is a vision that we can achieve together. And I believe that each and every single one of you out here can help make that dream happen. So thank you very much.